Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be providing a market analysis for EGLD, going over some very important levels of support to watch out for, as well as a custom-made indicator that might help provide some insight as to where EGLD could be headed over the next few months. So if you're new to the channel and you want to show some support, please do leave a like and subscribe. So first, I do want to talk about this low set in place on this June 13th capitulation. If we go all the way back to January of 2021, we can see how this was a very key level here of consolidation and resistance for a few weeks here before ultimately trending up to new all-time highs on this mania blow-off phase. So we can see how this is the current low set in place. We're bouncing off of this area, so that's a positive sign. We do want to see this continue. We want to see this low hold, maybe forming some higher lows and starting a new uptrend, kind of breaking this general downward sloping resistance where every few days or so we're just kind of coming up, rejecting and forming a lower high. So we're kind of coming up to a high that's lower than the previous high and rejecting off this trend line, forming resistance and coming back down. So we do see the initial stages of a rejection here. Ideally for EGLD, we do want to break this, start to break this short-term declining structure, get above this, and ultimately we need to see this $42 area hold as support. Because really, if we're starting to lose that, the next key level on the way down would ideally be this $28, $29 area that was kind of formed as resistance in 2020. So we can see how in July of 2020, we had this mania blow-off phase. Starting from the March 2020 capitulation, we really just went up and up and up at an increasing pace, ultimately forming this blow-off top mania peak at around $29. We came back down, and following this mania peak, we corrected about 80% or so, right? 78, 79. It was a very significant drawdown from this peak here. And then we came up, and if I just zoom in here, we can see how we had one retest of resistance here, another one. So we had two retests of resistance. We came above it, came back down, and then flipped it into support. So it was resistance in December and July of 2020, and then we flipped it into support in January of 2021, and that led us to new all-time highs, continuing this major and massive bull run. So in the event that we're starting to lose this $42 area of support here, then I'm expecting a drop all the way down to this $29 area. And if we take a measure move, that represents approximately a 30 or so percent drop, 32. So we don't want to see this level lost because it's just such a key level with this consolidation in January of 2021. And if we are to lose this, it's a pretty significant drop before getting down to the next key level. So my expectation though is that if we are starting to retest this $29 area of support, this will absolutely hold. I think we're going to be seeing a pretty strong bounce off this level and probably taking out this downward sloping resistance further down the line if that actually transpires. Now, I do want to consider the possibility that this is the current low in place and we start trending up here, breaking this downward sloping resistance and then maybe targeting some of these lower highs. So if you see something like this, where we're holding this area at around $42 and we're really just kind of starting to come up and break this downward sloping resistance, something like this, getting above it, and then ultimately if we can take out this high at around $66, then I'm going to be expecting a continuation all the way up to around $88 and then eventually this lower high at 103. Now, considering that we do have a pretty sharp bounce off of this support level, there is a chance that this is the low and we're starting to again break this downward sloping resistance, break this downtrend and move up from here. But my expectation is that ideally you want to wait and just see how this plays out, because if Bitcoin is starting to drop below $20,000 again, altcoins will quickly retest their lows. So it's really just a game of altcoins being kind of anxious to see what Bitcoin does. And if Bitcoin is starting to drop below $20,000, it's going to be very difficult for altcoins to hold their support levels, and they're just going to have a lot of stress being put on their current lows. So if you start to see Bitcoin capitulate, maybe it goes below $20,000, then altcoins are going to have a very hard time of holding their own strength. And really, it's going to be very difficult for EGLD in that event to hold this $42 area of support. Now, if you see Bitcoin start to bounce from here, maybe it goes to $25,000, then ideally that's going to break this downward sloping resistance. It's going to break this lower high at around $65, $66. and lead me to target some of these lower highs around 88 and again $103. Now I want to switch over to this custom made indicator, which is showing EGLD's extension from the 200-day simple moving average. So if I just toggle the 200-day simple moving average, it's this purple line. Historically, it's a very important moving average. We can see some key phases where it's holding as resistance, such as this rejection here in July of 2021. We held support in September of 2021. So basically, we flipped it from resistance into support, and that led us to new all-time highs. And then you can see when we broke below it, if I zoom in here, we had two key rejections really. This first rejection being on January 13th of this year. We had a very strong rejection capitulating over just the next few weeks. And then we had another rejection here in February. So this is a very important moving average to consider when looking at the long term. And if we're above this, it's a very positive sign because we can see, again, it holding as support in the event that we're having some sort of short-term correction, such as this August correction bringing us down from about 164 to around 131. So we do want to be above this moving average. Today it is at $137, and this indicator down here is color coding how far EGLD is above or below this. So you can see how when we're in these mania blow-off phases, such as February of 2021, that corresponds to these darker red colors. And when we're far below it, that's kind of correspondent to these darker blue colors. So if we're starting to see EGLD move back up and retest this moving average, that's going to bring us back up into the green and the lighter blue. Now, I do expect a retest eventually in the next few months. And if I just take a general line here, around 50, that is when the price is exactly equal to this moving average. It's a key inflection point in the market, right? We have this inflection point where, we came down to these lighter colors, turned around, reversed back up to the red, right? We had another inflection point here in these lighter blue colors. We turned around, went back up to the yellow at the peak phase. This was the all-time high around $540. Now, if we're starting to come back up and retest this eventually, it's going to be a very key decision for EGLD. Are we going to reject off of it once again and form lower lows, or can we reclaim it and start eventually trending back up, ultimately to some of these darker red and yellow colors? Now, if we see how EGLD is starting to break above it, that's going to be a very, very bullish sign. It's something to watch out for and consider. It's again at $137, so obviously retesting this in the short term is most likely not going to happen. But, in general, it's going to be moving down at a pretty quick pace. So if we retest it in, say, a few months at around $90, that would be something to absolutely watch out for, because if we can reclaim that and then flip it into support, such as we did in July and August of 2021, that's going to be a very bullish sign that we could potentially be headed back up to some of these higher valuations in the $240 to $500 range. So that's the end of my EGLD analysis. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback, please do leave those below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.